Are we?
Starting, yeah, we're broadcasting. We are live.
That's easy for you to say.
Okay, well, Jimmy is under the weather and I'm freakishly tired, so let's just jump right into this, shall we?
Do I have to jump? Really? Do I have to actually, leave the ground?
Well, I mean, you could run, you could kind of fall into it if you want. You
Alright,
can lay
alright.
down. I mean,
In other words, you just want me to ambulate in the direction of starting the podcast. I can do that. Alright. Okay.
um, So anyway, guys, welcome again to Comics on the Dot, where today's topic is going to be another very controversial one. Women in animation. Jimmy?
Again.
He just nods. As usual, he's your host, Jimmy TR. I'm sorry, Grindhead Jim.
Same
And
difference.
I am... What?
Same difference.
Same difference, yes. And I am Chris of NNTV, and I'm hosting this one apparently because Jimmy is under the weather, which beats out tired. So let's just jump right into this again with the opening topic, I should say, is that basically I'm doing this for an assignment, and I wanted to start out by talking about the whole cancellation of Young Justice and all that, and what your thoughts on it are, what my thoughts on it are, pass around some of the facts and things that have been thrown around on that. But I'm going to kick this off with you, Jimmy. You, sir. What do you think of the whole ordeal?
Uh, to be perfectly honest with you, it's one of those things that I'm not really up on a lot of the newer cartoons, but I keep up on the news. And I've been following this vis-a-vis through Kevin Smith's podcast, Fat Man on Batman, and news articles like that. And by hook or by crook, I come to find out that this cartoon was gaining a following, and things were going fine. And then out of nowhere, they canceled it. And the reason they gave for canceling it was that some nonsense about they need the cartoon to sell toys, and the females don't buy toys,
Uh-huh.
and the females are going to get into the show. And it was just this big, what? And it's beyond ridiculous. It's deplorable. It makes no sense to me. No, sir, I don't like it. That's as succinct as I can get it.
um,
It's always existed on some level within Hollywood to sell toys. However, the implication that females do not buy toys is just, in today's day and age, preposterous.
it's more hilarious when you look into the research that I did on the subject for my paper, is that in actuality the sales on the quote unquote boy toys actually went down 1%, whereas the ones for the quote unquote girl toys went up 4%. So
Hmm.
technically they're beating out. So yes, girls buy toys, but you're not selling toys that it's not it's a paradox to me because you're not selling to the market that is bigger and prone to make you more money in the long run. I just don't understand that. That's
Right. They just marketed the toy the same way that they market the show. Those are toys sold. Right? That's it. You put the characters of the show on a toy, and your fan base is primarily female. They will, in turn, buy the toy.
right. I
I don't see the disconnect. I don't. I really don't.
I feel I don't even think it's laziness. I think that because laziness would imply that you're adding on to something when all you need to do is just sort of update your current marketing plan as
Right.
opposed to adding to it. So I can't even say it's laziness. I can say it's just complete oversight or overlooking, I should say, a whole portion of the demographic, like all of this. And it's Paul Dini specifically said that it was because the girls don't buy toys. They buy different toys. They buy dolls and all that stuff. and they're not making dolls, which is a completely different conversation. But then,
Well, if we want to talk, I mean, again, not to go off on one direction, but a really quick counterpoint to that idea. 3 words: My Little Pony.
right, right, exactly, and that's the big one right now. I mean, for obvious reasons, and boys are buying those things more than girls are, which is just yeah,
Bronies.
ponies. So, and I actually don't mind that show. I kind of like it, but like again, another conversation.
Right.
The fact of the matter is that this whole thing is Kevin Smith said in the podcast. Basically, he's like, well, then don't give him put the character on something else. Give him a freaking umbrella or something. You know, you don't. It doesn't have to be a doll in order to be marketable to girls. I mean, like.
Right. I mean, if you
Legos out of them, and girls play with Legos, especially after the Lego movie just came out.
I mean, if you want to be archaic in your approach, there's ways to adhere to that bigoted sense of, well, they're not going to buy the toy. You can cater to that and still please everyone.
Yeah, the idea that you have to cancel the show just because the toys aren't going to work.
And they didn't put the toys out. They just assumed they wouldn't sell.
Right. That makes it even worse. Like they didn't even give it a chance. They didn't even wait to tell. They just went like, "Oh, these aren't going to sell. No boys want a toy of a girl." It's like again, ignoring the success of My Little Pony. So it's a complete paradox to me how all of this just happens. It's like there's no attention being given to any of what's going on around them, and it's their job to pay attention to it.
That's they had one job, Chris. One job. And they're not even... To me, it does come back to laziness, because they just don't care.
Yeah, I can see that.
The thought process comes to mind that maybe there was another reason, and they used the toy thing as the smokescreen to cover up some other thing. Like,
yeah, but at the same time, and that brings me to the whole thing with Wonder Woman. It's like their explanation for it is that she's tricky, which was their smoke screening, apparently, their smoke screening for the legal problems that would go with making Wonder Woman show up in anything. So it's like, yeah, you're covering one stupid thing with another stupid thing.
So, the last time we talked about this, I know that we hadn't gone into great detail on the legal stuff. Is there information that maybe I wasn't aware of before?
Well, the main thing with Wonder Woman and her legal issues is that presumably DC isn't, we've said that contracts like this do exist and all that. They are apparently not allowed to discuss the full details of it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know whether or not that's true, but that's what people are saying. That's what has been speculated and all that.
And this is them in the estate of the creator, correct?
Right.
Okay.
And the one of my favorite writers, actually, Kurt Busiek, however you pronounce his name, he actually spoke out on it like a while ago, and like I said, he wrote a Wonder Woman story. It was like 4 issues or something like that before the Crisis the Crisis of Infinite Earths reboot. Back in 87 or 89, whichever. And that's just because DC literally at the time could not go, I think it was like a year, without Wonder Woman being a feature in something. Like she had to have a title every year. So they did that in order to fill the time until the reboot came out.
Mm-hmm.
And supposedly, this whole restriction of Wonder Woman not being able to be in like Wonder Woman having to have title things out all the time. Apparently, DC recently outright bought the rights to her because she's been showing up in things where she's not the main character, and elements of her canon, like Wonder Girl, have been showing up in things where she's not the main character. So the idea that people are thinking is that, well, maybe this means that now DC has the rights to her, so they're just trying to figure out how to give her own show or whatever, for example. Like in Young Justice example, Wonder Girl is one of the characters in the whole second season of Young Justice, and she's not a main character at any point. At least I don't believe she is. She has a couple of significant-ish parts, but nothing to the extent of the first 6, 7, 8 characters from the first season. So the issue with Wonder Woman, again, is that they're saying that she's tricky, and a lot of the time they never really specify what she's tricky means. You know what I mean?
I'm assuming that what they're talking about is they don't want to fall into the same trap they did with Linda Carter, where that Wonder Woman show is it's tethered to the time period that it was created in. Whereas, like, the animated series of Batman is not. And
yeah, I could see that.
But then, if you want to make that argument, the answer to that is just do the same thing. Granted, you're going to update the character, but you can have like an Art Deco style. You just get Paul Dini involved. And he's been clamoring for it. He said so in the episode you're talking about. He said he would have done it, and he would still do it if they let him.
Bruce Timm said he'd have done it.
Yeah.
They all want to do it, but DC or Cartoon Network or whoever is not letting them do it, or was not letting them do it. And, like you said, the whole Linda Carter thing is just do it again and you update the character and all that stuff. I don't have a problem with that. So the matter is, though, that Wonder Woman has shown up in the Justice League. She's shown up in Young Justice. She's shown up in Static Shock.
Which sounds like a dryer lint commercial. Which sounds like a bad dryer lint commercial.
Fair point.
Just saying.
Yeah, she's shown up in a lot of things where she was not the title anything, or one of the main characters. Like in Justice League, fine, she's a main character. But in these other things, she wasn't. She was just there every once in a while. So having her show up and not be main characterized is basically saying, hey, contract's over. And that just raises whole new questions of, hey, why doesn't a cartoon exist yet?
And no one has an answer except
She's tricky, and I covered it in my Wonder Woman editorial thing when Gal Gadot, I learned that that's how you pronounce her last name, when she was cast to play her in Superman, Batman, whatever that movie's going to be called, Justice League, and there's like the whole she's tricky thing, the whole thing that she's too silly or too goofy. I kind of have to say, that gets thrown completely out of the window with...
When you cast Godot, yeah. It gets thrown out the window when you cast Godot, who, lovely person, good at what she does, however, couldn't hold a part if you taped it to her. Like, you can't. I'm sorry, that's not Wonder Woman. Wonder Waif, maybe, but Wonder Woman? Seeing it. I'm not seeing it. There's literally dozens of actresses that could pull it off better than her. But because she was in, the Fast and the Furious, I want to race car, blah, 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 Sorry.
Yeah. No, I'm with you, but the thing is, I was going to say that the three things that kind of just blow that away: 1, the animated Wonder Woman movie.
Yep.
2, Captain America. And 3, Thor.
Yeah, because those are silly characters.
They're all silly. They're all really silly. And Wonder Woman's animated movie is arguably the most successful DC animated movie to have happened.
Yeah.
And, huh?
Yep.
Yeah. So it's not making any sense. Now, debatable on how successful it was in portraying Wonder Woman. That's debatable. Fine. But
But that's subjective.
yeah, that's subjective. That's the
If
thing.
the whole argument began with it's not going to make us money, whether or not it was
made you money.
yeah, exactly, it doesn't matter anymore. It could be like these sloppy joes taste like crap. Well, we sold 350,000 of them in 1 minute. I don't care. Keep selling them. You know, granted, Wonder Woman is not a sloppy Joe sandwich. However, the sloppy Joes are tricky too. Maybe we should stop selling those.
Just thinking about it like this, none of the Golden Age characters, except maybe Batman, would still be around if all of them follow the mentality of they're tricky, let's avoid them. None of them would still be around. Superman would be gone, Captain America would be gone, and half the Silver Age characters would probably not exist anymore.
All right. Wonder Woman's tricky. Why? She's a female goddess that maybe has feminist tendencies. Maybe that's what they're referring to, and they don't want to like shtick that up. Well, let's look at the other characters just really, very briefly for a moment, shall we? Superman, alien orphan who believes in the American way. Not going any further than that. Batman, orphaned multi-billionaire, witnessed his parents murdered, and has a chip on his shoulder for crime, and likes flying rodents. That's normal. Aquaman. He's part fish and can talk to fish. He wears orange. Next, The Flash. It's a guy dresses in a red suit and runs around all day really fast. It's a meth addict. Yeah, those are simple freaking characters. She's tricky. Yeah.
Oh gosh, it's just, as a humongous Wonder Woman fan as I am, it bothered. And here's the thing that makes it even worse is that the character I have that's tied with Wonder Woman, Ms. Marvel. Marvel has been trying to get her places for years, and the only reason they haven't is mainly because they've been trying to build up to her, because she's not a character you can just throw at the screen. You have to, stuff has to be there first.
Right.
So, like, technically she gets introduced in the Avengers. So you have to do the Avengers first. You don't have to, but if you want to do the character justice, you start there.
Right.
With Wonder Woman, no, because the framework's already there for her. For one, the Justice League already happened, so you could make this show as a post-Justice League show if you wanted. But if you wanted to start new, start new. Wonder Woman does not start with the Justice League like she did in the cartoon. So
correct.
That's not a barrier you have to break down. And the idea that, oh, she's a female character, she won't be successful. I have to laugh at that because then I immediately start thinking of Harley Quinn.
How did Harley Quinn get her start again? On a cartoon, right?
Right. That is so bizarre, isn't it?
She was originally original at first. Her origin was on a cartoon that at the time did not have a toy line, I might add. Right? They create this character out of the ether, completely fresh. And if memory serves, it took 2 years before they made her canon in the entire DC universe. And right around the time a toy line came out and sold like hotcakes. I'm a guy. I didn't buy any of them.
I didn't buy any of them because I didn't know it existed. I was like 3.
Yeah, well, you'll have that. But there's precedence here. A character that came out of nowhere was so loved by fans that it got thrown into the DC canon, sold toys like crazy. You know, fucking, oh. And yet, the most popular female comic book character of all time. She's tricky.
Yeah, that's just it's amazing to me. And the DC animated movies, just going on a very brief history of how they portrayed Wonder Woman in those, because they've never been the same way twice. Because Wonder Woman in her own animated movie was completely different to the Wonder Woman that's in the Superman Batman movie. Is completely different to the one that's in Justice League War, which admittedly is not a very good one, but still. And, like I've said before, the Justice League War Wonder Woman is just Thor with boobs. That is virtually all she is.
Yep.
So you move on to things like casting Gal Gadot as her in Justice League. I'm not even going to call it Superman Batman anymore. It's Justice League. And, for all the talk you've put into saying, well, Wonder Woman's finally showing up, first of all, the fact that we're having to say things like finally and at least are insults, really.
Mm-hmm.
It's pathetic. And two, you're not doing yourself any justice because you're not putting any effort into it. And not just Wonder Woman, but in Young Justice and countless other female-driven, or at least shows with strong female characters in them. There's no effort being put into making pushing these shows to be what they can be. You get other shows like The Last Airbender, which has Katara and it has Toph, and they're both really compelling female characters. You have Buffy the frickin' Vampire Slayer, which is about a woman. The main character is a female. You have Justice League, which had Wonder Woman in it, though she's not the main character, she's a main character. And it also had Hawk Girl, who, same thing. And for a while, another show, Batman. For a while, Batgirl was a big thing. She wasn't really in the background until we're like halfway through it.
Right.
And just things like that they bug me because it shows a lack of effort, and that lack of effort is showing that they don't care. And I mean, am I wrong to think that? Is that being too harsh on them?
I don't think so. I mean, if you look at the track record, like it's just it becomes quite clear that in the absence of any sort of reasonable explanation or impetus to get this stuff done, I mean, what other conclusion are you supposed to draw? Reasonably, rationally, and logically. I don't think so. I think you've got it nailed on the head, unfortunately.
Yeah, I don't like having to have nailed that on the head, but I got nothing else to go by here. I mean, it could be totally possible that there are truly logical reasons to this, but I'm not holding my breath for it because of what we've been given.
Yeah.
This is supposed to be an appeal for action, and I suppose if there's any appeal to be made, it's for DC and Cartoon Network to just open their eyes, to wake up, because this is something that needs to stop. I mean,
look at Batman the Animated Series. Look at Superman's animated series. Look at Justice League and Justice League Unlimited. These were all their most popular cartoons DC's most popular cartoon endeavors ever, and some of Cartoon Network, the ones they were involved in anyway, their most popular endeavors as well. I don't understand where the inferred risk is. I don't get it. And you've proven these characters work in that context. You don't have to go out on a limb like with a Batman Beyond or Teen Titans or any sort, or even, you know, like the newer Ninja Turtles or Powerpuff Girls or whatever, My Little Pony. You don't have to drastically change the character to get these things, you know, off the ground. You know, whether we're talking about Young Justice, Wonder Woman, or anything in between. It just isn't necessary because it's proven to work. You know, and no one's going to cry foul if you take what we all know works with the characterization you know we like and just do it. Like, what? I don't see the problem.
Yeah. And, you know, that's starting to get into a whole nother conversation because what you just said also happens to very handily sum up the entirety of the New 52. The whole thing. So that's a completely different conversation. But I don't know. This whole thing is just something that, like I said, it's gotta stop because it's just, aside from undermining the female demographic, because that's what it is doing, it's depriving of, it's making it so there aren't as many, I'm going to say, strong, intriguing, compelling female characters in the foreground of animation like this. You know, we're not getting enough superheroes of that sort in the foreground. You know, we get it every...
Yeah, I mean, even in other media, for example, again, the shortest possible thing, the last two games that I've played, Tomb Raider Definitive Edition and the Last of Us, the DLC for that, which is a story, what you hear in documentaries surrounding those two things is that they're like, these are strong female characters which you don't see very often. Even the cutting edge, state-of-the-art entertainment that's out there supposed to cater directly to people like us are flat out saying, this never happens. Yet the entertainment media, the comic books and cartoons, the ones that have the power and the freedom to do whatever they wish, when there's a call to it in all forms of entertainment, they just won't. And for what? Won't sell toys. Ow. Ow, my head. Oh, my head.
Hurts my head, too.
You know, I hate to repeat myself, even though I'm good at it. It's just, you see it all the time, and I you know, beat my controller off my head. I'm like, ah! You know, just playing all these things, because I keep hearing this. Because I got to be honest, it's like, well, when I'm watching a documentary for a storyline that comes a year later in terms of release than the original game, which establishes this character, which is a great female lead, and then they say, here's another great female lead, and it's like, well, you just gave me a great female lead. So, I hate to be this guy, but I would argue that the stance that you don't see strong female characters all that much, the more you bring that up, the longer it's going to take before we just have it as an accepted part of the genre. If every time you have a strong female, they go, holy crap, it's a strong female! It's like, well, how are you supposed to just accept it, you know? That'd be like if every time, if you'll pardon the comparison, but I think you'll go with me on this. If every time you walked in the room, someone said, "Oh my God, a young black comic book fan," you know, but why? Why should that be a big deal? If you've never seen a strong female lead or a young black comic book fan, once you see it once, you can never, oh, that exists. That's awesome, great. You know, strong female characters in pop culture. 1981. Sigourney Weaver, Alien. You hear that? That's the sound of DC's argument falling the hell apart. She's complicated. No. Maybe the legal problems are complicated, but by all accounts, you've bought the rights, so that simplifies the complications. You've used the character before in ways that were effective. Put out a willingness to put her in easily the biggest film DC will ever make. So it's not like you're not showing some degree of impetus. So, whose Wheaties are being urinated in and why? And let's remove the bladder of the individual responsible for that urine and move on with our lives. Come on. Just Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman. Come on. Just gimme. Gimme. It's as I'm so fond of saying, it's not hard. It's not hard. It's not.
Yeah.
And yet you hear the same, again, you hear the same argument over and over and over, whether we're talking about the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, or now. Or actually the aughts and the teens, or whatever the heck difference is for all these different decades. At what point, because it's the same argument, at what point do we say that strong females are accepted as just part of the palette from which you can choose? And at what point do we say, once we've accepted that, at what point do we just start throwing them out there? Because there is a difference between saying, okay, strong females, we can do that, and then actually having them on a regular basis without it being an event.
Right. I mean, even looking at, like, me, for example, if you've read anything I've ever done, then you know.
You're not a strong female. Yes, I know that.
Oh, Jimmy.
You're
But
not.
if you've read anything I've ever made, then you know my gender ratio things that I create are like 3 to 7 male to female. So and I don't make an event out of it. I don't even do that on purpose. It just happens to be like that. So I've made a crap ton of female characters, and I don't make a big deal out of the fact that they're girls. Ever. So it's not something that I don't think you should have to make a huge deal out of it, but I think that while you're not doing it, it makes it worse. And
Right.
then when you end up making a big deal out of it later, then it brings people like me and people like Jimmy and people like pretty much anyone in that rule you can ask is like, well, why are you making such a big deal out of something that should be one of the simplest things in the world?
Right.
To put it simply, Cartoon Network and DC, and to quote Jimmy here, just play ball. It's not that hard.
Right. Exactly. It just, their refrain is that they're scared to put out "I'm woman, hear me roar," when it should be as simple as "Here is Wonder Woman, hear her cha-ching, cha-ching." That's all it should be. That's it. That's it. Just put it up there and collect your money, and that's great. It doesn't have to be a socio-political event, though I understand the implications of it. I understand that the company has made major missteps with that character in the past. I think the fear is the PR backlash if they screw it up.
Mhm.
I get it. But I think that they're overthinking it. It's like, look, just
Right. And
ask
that, I would
do in that role. That's all
Right.
you do.
I mean, if it was like a fear of the PR backlash, I would forgive that much sooner than I would forgive this. Does that mean it's particularly reprehensible? Does it mean it's a good thing? No, but it's better than what we're being given here, which is coming across as chauvinism. It's coming across as misogyny. It's just...
No, it is chauvinism, and it is misogyny until they prove otherwise.
Pretty much.
I mean, we've discussed this more than once. The character of Wonder Woman was born of sadomasochistic bondage fantasies. Literally. All right? Doesn't get much more gender role separative than that. And even though on the surface the imagery appeared to be that she was a submissive female, the reverse was occurring. More often than not, she was a subversive, dominant female, and that's what he was trying to portray. And I think if there was an underlying thing to this whole legalities issue, I think a lot of it had to do with he wanted to see that character portrayed accurately, not just fodder for, hey, we need a female on screen or in the comic or something like that. And that's probably part of what it is. Maybe it's fear of... It's fear. That's the bottom line. It's fear. And whatever it is, they need to get over it and move on. I don't know how
you have to fear is fear itself.
Which you don't even have to be scared of that.
That was a bad comic.
It was a bad time in American history, too.
Yeah, that too.
Depression, and where they didn't have any money.
I was referring to a comic that I reviewed, though.
Yeah, I know.
It's a joke.
Yeah.
You know.
Dun 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 dun. Oh. So
in conclusion, right. All I can say is that, you know, we've been in this ballpark before. We've had this conversation. We've talked about this. We've debated on this. We've done our research, gone over all the facts, and for whatever reason, this is not getting any better. And I hesitate to say it's getting worse, but it's not getting any better. And at the end of the day, when I hear that something is getting canceled because of the toy sales, or something is not happening because the companies and the powers that be think it's too complicated, and then when I see that previously the same powers created something as revolutionary, if you will, as Harley Quinn, I'm just, my mind is boggled absolutely by all of it, and all I can say in this appeal for action is that DC and Cartoon Network, and to a much lesser extent Marvel and Disney, need to just get their crap together with female characters and give us some that are going to be compelling, give us some that are going to be in the foreground, and they don't necessarily have to be the main character, but as long as they show up and are significant, then that's all I'm looking for. You know, I can talk for ages about the current Marvel Avengers cartoon versus the old one, and how the old one actually, I felt, had a better handle on female characters. But I'm not going to, because, one, that conversation would take me all night, and two, because I shouldn't have to. At the end of the day, I shouldn't have to.
Ding, 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 ding. Ding, ding.
And other than ding, ding, your closing thoughts, Jimmy?
You pretty much nailed everything as far as we've done this dance enough times as a culture, as whether we're talking about Western culture or the entertainment medium or anything in between. We have it all figured out, even if the fat cats don't. And they need to trust us. That's the problem with this particular medium, with the cartoons and the comics, is that they don't trust their fan base. We trust them, they don't trust us. That's a bad, abusive relationship. But they love us! Pow! You know, it's like, what? It doesn't work out that way, man. You can't... At some point... It's the easiest check in the world to cash. All you gotta do is say, what do you want? We want Wonder Woman and Black Widow and a realistic Mary Jane and a Gwen Stacy and Marvel Girl and Batgirl and Catwoman, and just put them out there. Just all at once, just girls. Girls, girls, girls. And just do it. That's what we want, among other things. But just listen to the fans long enough, give us what we want, and then just watch the money roll in. Maybe you're not going to draw in the mainstream audience right away, but they'll catch on. If they can catch on to Guardians of the Galaxy, it's anything. You've got people that have never read a space-based Marvel comic in their life excited to go see a raccoon with machine guns that they don't understand at all, and probably the worst character design for Drax the Destroyer I've ever seen. Yeah, I went there. So if you've got a film that no one, except for like the mega nerds like you and I, are really excited for legit reasons, if that exists, you can give us what we've been asking for almost 50 years, which is just an end to this cycle of bigotry and fear surrounding having a female character worth a damn in comics and cartoons. And know that the merchandising sells itself. You don't have to have these great big plans attached to it for it to work. I mean, how many shows and comics had come along that no one expected to do well and became enterprises? In fact, there's only one I have to mention, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. In a world where that can exist over and over and over and over again and be merchandising giants, you should never have to worry about the character being too tricky. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, yeah, that's simple. Or the toys not selling, because something will sell. Something will sell. So stop worrying about the bottom line and worry about the idea. If the idea has merit, people will latch onto it and they will demand merchandise to go along with it. You know, start using that as an example. This is my final point when it comes to the merchandising, which is supposed to be the crux of their argument. Star Wars merchandising didn't catch on until a year after the film had come out. The merchandising for that franchise was woefully underprepared. And Lucas was smart enough to jump on that boat and make that happen, and then it's been a nonstop ride ever since. But that doesn't mean that everything you launch has to launch with merchandising. Why not see where the character takes hold? Take just enough of a risk to establish the fan base, or draw the existing fan base into that lore, and then figure out what works, and then put it out there. Done. Stop trying to do everything all at once and assuming it's not going to catch on in a couple weeks. It doesn't work that way. Dang it. Phone. And turn the ringer off on your phone, DC, if you're trying to talk to people over the YouTube. Because it's rude. It's rude. Just say it.
Fine.
Those are my closing thoughts.
Oh, this is okay. Well, guys, this has been Comics on the Dot with your hosts, Jimmy TR / Grindhead Jim and Chris of NNTV and DC and Cartoon Network. While we're at it, learn to play ball, because if you don't, this is not going to end well for you.
Don't be bigots.
That too. That would be a better one, actually. Let's go with that. And without any further ado, I thank you guys for coming to check out our little chat, and I'll see y'all later. Take care.
Deuce!
Oh, gosh.